Many thanks, Matthew. Thanks for having me here. So I'm going to tell you in a few minutes more about the Chilchinbeto Pump Storage Hydropower Project, which is an energy storage project to help integrate more renewable energies into the grid, more intermittent renewable energies, particularly solar and wind. But it's also a water infrastructure project, actually a large water infrastructure project, as you will see in a minute. So we're nature and people first. Nature, it's obvious. I mean, we're doing this for our kids as well. I've got 4 kids. I want to look at them straight in the eyes a few years down the road and say, hey, I'm trying to do something at my level against climate change. And also people first. People first because we put a lot of value on having buy-in from local communities. And we have this in Chilchinbeto. I mean, we have a remarkable leadership team with Paul Metzlin and his team who've been supporting us for the past 4 years trying to make this project happen. So thanks a lot again to Paul and all the people there. And people first also because we believe that these very significant infrastructure project that will happen over the next several years should be directed primarily to areas where economic development is much needed. And it's really the case, obviously, in our nation. We heard many examples of why it's needed. Chilchinbeto, I mean, they have 27 full-time jobs only on 1,800 inhabitants. During the pandemic, they were at the epicenter of the pandemic. They were locked down for several weeks. They could not wash their cloth. I mean, the nearest laundromat was 30 minutes away in Kenyatta, and so they want to have at least a laundromat around the corner one day, and this project obviously could help make this happen. Next slide, please. So pump storage, we've heard about it a bit earlier, so just briefly what it is all about. So it's actually a water battery based on 2 reservoirs with elevation change between the two. When energy is cheap, typically photovoltaic, solar energy during the day, water is being pumped from the lower reservoir to the upper reservoir. And when energy is needed at the end of the day, when people go back home, turn on the oven, turn on the light, turn on the TV, it's peak consumption time, you need a lot of energy between 6 p.m. and 9 p.m. It's true around the world, it's true here as well. You release the water and you recover 80% of the energy that has been stored. I mean, I grew up next to the largest actually pump storage project in France, as you can hear from my accent, next to Grenoble, actually the largest in Europe. So I'm very familiar with this technology and I've been familiar since I was a kid. So I believe that this technology can do a great deal to help integrate more solar and wind here in the US, particularly here in the Southwest. It's coming back in a big way. It used to be very popular in the 70s and the 80s. 20 gigawatt have been built in the US, actually in the Rockies during that period. At the beginning of the energy transition, the first solution that was adopted had been lithium-ion batteries, because lithium-ion batteries are easy to deploy, quick and fast. But people are starting to realize the limits of lithium-ion batteries. First, it's difficult to deal with more than 2 or 4 hours of storage. When a project like this can deal with 12, 15 hours easily and at a very low cost. And on top of that, people are discovering some of the shortcomings also of lithium-ion batteries. You're dependent on a small number of countries which have a near monopoly on raw materials like lithium, like cobalt, like nickel, and there's even an OPEC lithium which is being created right now in South America. You're dependent on China. China controls the whole supply chain of batteries. They manufacture 80% of lithium-ion batteries, 80% of battery cells, and they refine between 70 and 90% of the raw materials needed for lithium-ion batteries. So utilities are looking into this kind of technology to diversify away from batteries right now. It's coming back in a big way, pretty much everywhere in Europe and in the US right now. Next slide, please. So who are we? We're developers of pump storage projects in France and in the US. In fact, we are finalizing the first project in 40 years, pump storage project in 40 years in France at the moment. We obtained the creation of a legal framework for this. And we're working also on this project in the US. We're working with a large infrastructure fund called Meridian, which has $18 billion under management, and who's our partner. Among our partners, we also have Eric Van Loop. Eric is a lawyer from Boston, 77 years old, who's been a friend of the Navajo for many, many years. When he was a student at Harvard Law School in the 70s, he was already helping the Navajo, trying to find money, grants to help fund education for Navajo kids. I'm myself a serial entrepreneur. I started 2 companies prior to this one, which have become world leaders in their respective spaces. The first one was a software company called Business Objects, which went public on NASDAQ quickly, just 5 years after inception. had large customers, including actually a lot of utilities, including SRP as a matter of fact. And because of that, because of this success, and because we're from Europe, because the story was not very unique for American entrepreneurs, Business Week appointed us best entrepreneurs next to Steve Jobs in paper. It was a fairy tale beyond our wildest expectations. Then I created another company, which is an e-logistic company called Kiala, which had a 50% compounded annual growth rate for 10 years, and is now a division of UBS. So that's essentially it. So we're anticipating what's called the duck curve, which is coming very strongly right now. Which is this situation typically where at the end of the day, the sun goes away, but consumption goes up very significantly. And it's really a nightmare for people running utilities right now. They're really worried about this. And you heard earlier, Ellen was right in saying that, if you don't manage this properly, you have a blackout, and a blackout in Phoenix during the summertime, people die. So it's a very, very serious issue. And so there's a big need, and there are going to be massive investments in projects like this across the Southwest, and hopefully here in the Navajo Nation. And it's coming actually right now, next to you. SRP has just announced plans to add 1,000 megawatt, 1 gigawatt of pumped storage hydro on the Apache Lake, very close to here. So it's truly happening as we speak here in the Southwest. Next slide, please. So our project will be based in the Chilchinbeto area, where again we have a very strong support. It's going to be a 750 megawatt project. It's going to require 200 to 300 acres per reservoir, so it's not very big. 200 acres is equivalent to a square with size of just 3,000 feet, so it's not enormous, in terms of surface area. And we're going to try and use, you don't see it very well in the slide here, we're going to try and use photovoltaic panels to limit evaporation for the water. We've done this already for a first project in Martinique in the French Islands. Please, next slide. Where, in terms of the water, there are several possible sources. When talking to various people here, and in particular to an NGO called Tony Giuliani, they came up with a suggestion to use the sea aquifer. The sea aquifer is a very large body of water, 400 million acre feet, goes way beyond the borders of the Navajo Nation, recharges very substantially, 290,000 acre feet per year, and it's totally underused by the Navajo Nation. In fact, almost the only place where they use the sea aquifer in the Navajo Nation is this place, is the Twin Arrows Casino. But only 1% of the water pumped in the sea aquifer every year is being done in the Navajo Nation. The rest happens mostly around next to the I-40 interstate on the left-hand side of the slide here. So what we're saying is, hey, maybe the Navajo Nation should worry about pumping a little bit more out of the sea aquifer, because history has demonstrated that if you don't use the water, people will deny you using the water in the future. There's a risk of using it or losing it, basically. We believe that water use will lead to water rights, so it's probably a good idea to go after the sea aquifer. Next slide, please. So what we're going to do, we're going to have to build a water infrastructure to fill in the reservoir. Reservoirs are going to be 10,000 acre feet. It's going to take 2 years. So we're going to build an infrastructure that's going to be capable of pumping 5,000 acre feet per year. But after that, we're going to need only 2,000 acre feet, and that's a very conservative number to face evaporation. It's probably going to be more than 1,000 acre feet range if we can use this photovoltaic panel to limit evaporation. So there's going to be an infrastructure available to whoever wants to use it to pump 3,000 acre feet per year. That's a lot of water. If you look at just 500 acre feet, you can graze more than 22,000 cows per year with just 500 acre feet. So it's a great opportunity for the Navajo Nation and the local communities to use this water in an intelligent way, for agriculture, for grazing, for whatever need you have. Maybe potentially generate hydrogen and use it for local mobility, for example, as well. If you look at the numbers quickly, 5,000 acre feet, that's only 3.57% of the annual pumping and only 1.72% of the annual recharge, and 0.00125% of the total capacity of the sea aquifer. Totally marginal. Thanks a lot. Next slide, please. So the benefits for the nation: access to water, obviously; income, obviously, for the nation, and in exchange for business side needs; 1,000 jobs for 3 years of construction, 100 direct and indirect jobs afterwards; ownership of the project by the Navajo Nation after 50 years. We're willing to transfer ownership to the Navajo Nation after 50 years. And possibly also an investment by a wholly owned Navajo Nation company as a minority investment is something we're open to. We're going to improve access roads to the top of the mesa, which is critical in the wintertime in particular. We're ready to improve also and invest in improving biodiversity in Black Mesa, and we can also work on improving broadband for local chapters. We're open to all that. Next slide, please. Again, we obtained a lot of support from a lot of people. I want to stick to the 7 minutes, so I'm not going to list all the support we got here, but we got in particular a resolution by the Western Navajo Agency Council in last September, where the 80 chapters covering Black Mesa and beyond have voted in favor of this project. NGOs who were there, of course, some of them opposing the project have been marginalized. I want to insist on this. So again, several forms of support, including local grazing communities controlling 30,000 acres, are not only interested in having this project happen, but also in hosting the project on their land. So very, very strong local support. Thanks a lot.